been around this week, so when will we ever really see that all men are the same under the skin? Let's break down the walls between you and me. 5 races, 1 people, wage peace around.
Welcome everybody, my name is Diana Carsola and I am your host for The Energy Connection. I'm also the founder of a wonderful organization called the Earth Flag Activity. We address violence and racism out here on this planet. And this weekend I had the privilege of meeting with 150 other people from around the world, leaders in their own right, whether they be religious, economic, social, environmental, homeless. We dealt with many, many issues to talk and address so we could find a plan and make a plan to take action. We had vision for the year 2000 that we can actually start implementing right now. Today I'm very privileged to introduce to you a gentleman named Elmore Richmond Jr. He is an author, he is a president of his own company, he's a former military personnel, and I'd like to share with you, he has a book called The Power Pack 101 Points to Social and Economic Justice. He is the president and, as I said, founder of the Power Pack Center for Social and Economic Justice, and I'd like to introduce him to you now. Welcome.
Thank you, Diana, for having me.
Thank you very much. We wanted to talk about, over this weekend, we had met this weekend and we had the opportunity to address many different issues that are affecting us as people as a whole. And I wanted to bring you on the show so you could share with us about your views in what you're doing with your organization, with the center, and also find out what we can do, talk to the public and find out what we can do about specifically racism. But right now we're going to talk about your book and about your center.
Sure. The Power Pack was first published back in 1994. And I was able to identify 101 interconnected points that can be applied in a systematic way in order to address root causes instead of just dealing with the effects. And it's structured in such a way that point 19 here in California is point 19 in Detroit or New York or anywhere throughout the United States. And that way we can be more effective in eradicating these conditions instead of just dealing with the effects.
Yes.
And there's no one organization or individuals can work all these points, but we can do it in concert.
Absolutely, which is one reason why I've invited you on the show. We come from different backgrounds, we come from different expertise in our passions, but together we are more powerful. We are a more powerful voice out here. What are some of the points that you might be able to share with us?
Well, we took a look at about 37 interconnecting social factors, anything from reducing the level of homelessness within the United States, or to dealing with the hunger problem, reducing the level of violence, social factors of that type, and also enhancing the school education, the opportunities for young people. And then we took a look at equal employment opportunity to try to ensure that people are afforded equal opportunity and treatment throughout their job life cycle through that process. Then we look at political aspect. And then we look at the criminal justice side, and then increasing the awareness and education of our youth, and also people who in need of remedial training. So we look in a way that we can become more effective in that whole process there. And then we have 15 points, which is actually designed to organize an effective plan throughout the nation.
Wonderful, wonderful. At the center, when somebody calls, why are they calling?
Well, they call for a number of reasons. Often they call for direction, information. We also are a clearinghouse. We have aligned over 600 organizations throughout the nation to the points in the book.
Wow.
The thought is to be able to have thousands of organizations aligned to those points, so you know who's working on point 10 or point 15 throughout the nation. And for example, if you want to bring on point 32,
which
is improving the socialization process.
Yes.
We may not have an organization that's currently working on Point 32 here in Los Angeles, but this would give you a means to identify someone else who's working on that same point in Detroit or New York or some other part of the country.
Expanding the family.
That's right, sure.
Wonderful. We met this weekend, and we were fortunate enough to be introduced to something called Wisdom Circles, and we were in a Wisdom Circle together, and we shared with different individuals about racism and addressing it, and addressing our own fears, addressing what we can do to support each other in communication. What are some of the, I know that in the news now, I mean, this won't be aired for about a month, but in the news we just had Texas, a terrible incident happen in Texas, and then we just, over this weekend, we had 3 more type copycat instances. How, let me hear from you a little bit.
Well, you know, I worked human relations concerns for about 17 years when I was in the Air Force. And I know that you have to take immediate action to stop that type of pattern of discrimination. That is one of the worst forms of discrimination, when you actually kill someone based on racism. And I'm familiar with the 2 of the incidents that occur in addition to the one in Texas over the weekend. You have one in Illinois to occur, and also one in Louisiana to occur over the weekend. Of course, they were not as gross as the incident. No one actually was killed in the incident, in those incidents, but nevertheless, they had the same MO. And we may say that there's no organized conspiracy per se, but nevertheless, if you preach hatred based on racism, those seeds are planted. And so what we have to do as a nation to recognize that this is a nation that is for the people, regardless of the color of their skin. And people must feel safe to walk anywhere they would elect to walk in any part of this country at any time. It is our responsibility to ensure that take place. So I think this should serve as a turning point to take another look at racism and put it on the national agenda to do that. In fact, we also over the weekend, as you know, we developed a United People Council. We had our very first meeting here this weekend, and this is one of the initiatives that the council is concerned about, being able to become more involved as a nation, and whereby the people can take charge of what's going on within their communities, and to turn this ideal of these attitudes of hatred around to more positive communication. And I think it's going to take all of us working together to that end to effect, that vision.
Yes, that vision with the Vision 2000. We did get together, the United World People's Assembly, I think is what we finally came to an agreement with. Very key individuals that are writing a letter of concern of the issues.
Sure. What our proposed action, and we plan to fax off this afternoon, actually, a fax to the president encouraging him to declare the period of June the 27th to July the 4th to be called a reflection on the death of James Byrd. He is the individual that was killed in the incident in Texas. A turning point for race relation, whereby he will encourage governors, mayors, churches, organization heads to focus, and everyday citizens, to focus on activities that are designed to deal with these attitudes which cause people to want to hurt one another because of their race. And this way we can hopefully engender a positive spirit of togetherness during this time frame, because we're going into the 21st century. And it's going to be very difficult when we take a look at what's going on with the population disposition within the United States. It's been projected that by the year 2050, about 52% of the people in the United States would be white Americans. About 25% would be Hispanics. And about 14 to 15% would be African Americans. And the remaining would be composed of Pacific American Islanders and American Indians and other members that's not included in those groups.
Yes.
So we have to realize that we, in order to be more effective in this nation and enjoying the diversity, we have to stamp out racism.
Yes.
And I think I think we can do a lot more. But we have to understand the severity of the problem, and I think we have failed to do that.
Yes.
For whatever reason, it has not been given the proper attention. But I understand this, that we the people can come together and dictate to our government what we want. But we have to understand it to the level like we have never understood it before. We have to understand the real impact of racism, discrimination on individuals. And I believe when that occurs, we can begin to look at it from a complete different vantage point. We also have to understand when individuals actually discriminate. You know, discrimination is the actual act when you actually deny or deprive someone of something that should be theirs, and you do it, in this case, because of their race. And you know, a lot of times people don't understand discrimination can also be by inference. That means basically just to imply.
Yes.
Or it could also be by inaction. When you observe something that's going on and you know it's wrong, you know individuals are actually being denied a real opportunity, or you hear a joke which is very demeaningful and discriminatory, and you sit back and you do nothing about that. The reality is that you are also involved in that process of discrimination. And so, you know, when you talk about discrimination, you know, sometimes, you know, it's caused a lot of pain, you know, it causes people to...
Well, it shakes people up.
But, you know, pain sometimes is good. You know, it serves as an indicator that something is wrong. And we must begin to talk about it. We must begin to talk about it with the sense of awareness that we have the answers. And we must be able to transcend those barriers that separate us. And when we take a real look at it, we'll find that we have a lot in common. And I think this is the way you really appreciate diversity. You know, they use the phrase that we must be more tolerant of one another. I look at it from a completely different vantage point. I look at it, you know, from the vantage point that we must be more appreciative of one another. I tolerate someone when they, you know, chewing gum. I appreciate them regardless of their cultural, their racial, their ethnic background. And that's the way I think it's critical that we see it.
I agree. We need to re-educate ourselves.
Sure.